Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Tim's News Explosion on this Monday, the 13th of November, 2023. We are live on the Wilmsfront YouTube channel, the Wilmsfront Odyssey channel, and the Wilmsfront Rumble channel. Hello to everyone in the live chats, and I've got Entropy up where you can send through a donation super chat, and I'll read it out into the show. Hello, Dawn. Hello, Peak Aussiemen. Great to see you all. It is 9 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where anti-Semitism has been cured and the local Jewish community can once again feel safe with Jacob Hirschnet, now the first person to be formally charged with performing a Nazi salute in a public place when he addressed the media after he and Thomas Sewell were sentenced for violent disorder. So you'll, of course, know that the Victorian Parliament fast-tracked the legislation to ban all Nazi symbols and gestures. So it has been defeated now, anti-Semitism, and the Jewish people now feel safe here in Victoria. Hang on. That's not correct, given that we saw a West Bank-style conflict unfold in the inner southern suburb of Caulfield in the heart of Melbourne's Jewbelt on Friday night, where pro-Palestinian activists, along with their Antifa simps, staged a protest in the local Prince's Park, with local Jewish residents coming onto the streets as well. And this is probably the most tense moment of the night, captured on camera by a real Ruckshan.
OC spray has been deployed. So someone just lunged at this community here.
They incited the violence.
Now, Avi Yemeni wasn't there, though he is on his way back to Melbourne, but he sent out an email today saying that he needs $25,000 in donations to install a home security system. So he said he's installed a serious camera system in and around my house, and I'm doing 2 other things to protect my family that I won't discuss publicly. I don't want my home security plans to be known. Though Avi's stalker was there Friday night, that fat cunt Antifa supporter Christopher Johnson. I wonder if he had his chopping board sign in case Avi showed up. All he could muster when Ruckshan was there was fuck off and suck my dick. Charming. So why did these pro-Palestinian activists and their Antifa simps gather in Caulfield? Well, it all stemmed from there was the firebombing, arson attack of a local Burgertory franchise restaurant there, which the CEO is pro-Palestine supporter Hash Tayeh. And now Victoria Police have said that they're confident it's not politically motivated, but it certainly was arson. These are the 2 men that were captured on CCTV cameras there. And as you can see, well, that's a huge explosion there. It certainly wasn't because the burgers had been turned up too much there on the grill. And so this is what was on the Victoria Police website. They said the exact cause of the fire is being investigated, and at this stage, the fire does not appear to be racially motivated. Detectives are keen to speak to any witnesses or anyone that may have seen any suspicious activity in the area at the time. Now, because he is a pro-Palestinian activist, the CEO Hash Tayeh, and one of his chains that went up in flames is in Caulfield. They didn't say explicitly the pro-Palestinian activists online, but they implied that it must have been done by the local Jews, even though there's no evidence to support that. This is the thing about this conflict that's been imported into our city and our country. Each side decides, or it just speculates on what they believe the truth is to fit their narratives or their side. Now, Hash Tayeh, they claim, the Antifa pro-Palestinian activists, they claim they turned up there to support him. But as this video shows, he told them not to come that Friday evening.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all having a good day, better than I have. Yeah, the events of today are pretty unfortunate, pretty sad, and I think everyone is in their own right justified to be upset and feel angry. But I want to remind everyone that there's no benefit of us protesting at the Caulfield store, because some people out there will purposely try and bait you into doing the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing, and then they'll use that against you and us to change the narrative and make us look like the bad guys. If you want to support us, then please do support us by donating on the GoFundMe link that is being shared around. I don't actually have the link, but I know that there is one. And go to our stores and buy burgers and reassure our staff. Let them know that you're there for them. Let them know that they're not in danger, that you care about them, and let them know that they've got a good boss. At the end of the day, I don't advocate violence. All I want is peace. And the perpetrators of whoever did burn our store down, the police will find them. I'm confident of that. So please, if you're planning on protesting tonight in Caulfield, I would suggest that you don't. No benefit will come from it. There's a select few that will purposely bait you to do the wrong thing, and then they'll point fingers at you. They'll keep poking until you react. And once you react, they're going to say, we got the bad guy, look at them. There's no point. Don't feed into what they're trying to portray us as being, because we want peace. Free Palestine! Make sure you continue to call for a ceasefire and for peace. I'll be providing a full update later on about all the events that have happened today. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to DM us. And in the meantime, remember...
So the GoFundMe was set up by a man called Omar Sukar, and so far it has raised over $51,000. Now, some people who claimed that it was an insurance job, that's again baseless speculation. Again, people just put out speculation to fit with their narrative. But if there's a GoFundMe set up, then it would imply that there's not much insurance to be gained from the store burning down. I don't know. Again, I'm engaging in speculation here as well. Now, it kicked off in Caulfield earlier in the day. So local Jewish residents turned up in front of shop fronts with Israeli flags. They would claim to protect Jewish businesses, and there were plenty of cars that went by. Probably the most notable was this driver with the 1453 tattoo, which is a tattoo that commemorates the Ottoman Turks' conquest of Constantinople. So this is what occurred here. Now, as you can hear there, that the Jews that have gathered there, I mean, they're giving it to him, and certainly the Jews who turned up outside Princess Park that night, draped in Israeli flags. I mean, they did nothing to de-escalate the situation and ratcheted up the tension. This is what one of the breaking news journalists captured of the Jews outside Princess Park. Now that short lady at the end who was yelling out to the drivers, she was draped in the Israeli flag saying "fucking dog." She's holding a dog there. I mean, the poor dog's probably thinking, "Oh, what are you calling me the same as them? They look so mean, and I'm so nice to you." Now, of course, there was plenty of abuse and heckling from the pro-Palestinian activists from the Princess Park side, including this, we presume he was Muslim, talking about the homosexual population in Tel Aviv.
Penguin! Hey, homo! Hey, homo! You look like a little homo penguin. The highest kufta rate in the world is in Tel Aviv. You're one of them homos, aren't you? Little kufta, like a little midget. Come here. Give us the war. The war. I mean, there's such thing of a war. You'll make your heart tremble. You're trembling now. We're in your backyard. You're trembling.
Like you lost stone women and throw gays off buildings. You've got no moral compass.
You've got no heart. Hide behind the bus stop. Fucking signers, big rat. I get homeless people.
That Muslim sounds like a Paulie Finnick character. Oh, Tel Aviv is the pufta capital of the world. I don't think I'm not sure if that's factually correct. I'd have to look that up. Though that's where Tel Aviv Pride, it's the biggest pride festival in the Middle East, and it's also a very social justice warrior city. It's sort of the Melbourne of Israel. But Paulie Finnick, he doesn't need to come up with much of a creative script. It was basically all written for him there. He has in his shows, Fat Pizza, Howzos, and now Daradong. There's always a Muslim character who fits the stereotype. And speaking of comedians, there, John Safran was also there to cover it. It's in his 50s now, and he still looks like a scrawny young man. It doesn't look like he's aged at all. Now, of course, the state's political leaders put out statements condemning what happened in Caulfield and saying we're a proudly multicultural state. So I'll begin with the first statement that was put out by the Liberal member for Caulfield, Deputy Liberal leader David Southwick. So this was the first one. What happened in this was the first one here. I know many remain shaken, hurt, and deeply worried as a result of this morning's fire and the public discourse and displays that have since emerged. As their investigation continues, Victoria Police have this afternoon said that the fire does not appear to be racially motivated. With this in mind, we must not further incite Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, animosity, and division. Hatred in all its forms is toxic to our proudly multicultural state, and we will never tolerate anyone who seeks to use today's distressing incident as a way of demonizing or antagonizing any other group of Victorians. Clear heads now must prevail. Whilst I know that these times are unprecedented and strike so close to the hearts of many people across our state, we cannot allow a community to be overcome by division. And later that night, he said, what happened in my community of Caulfield this evening was a disgrace. To enter the heart of Melbourne's Jewish community, terrorize people outside their synagogue, and throw rocks at Jews is appalling beyond words. This is not the Victoria I know and love. There was a synagogue across the street, which was evacuated. I don't know if they were ordered to by Victoria police, because Friday night is Shabbat, the Jewish day of rest. And now the pro-Palestinian activists claim that they did not know that the synagogue was there. I don't know, do you take them at their word? Of course, their pro-Israelis will say, oh, they knew exactly where it was. And another unfortunate coincidence is that this pro-Palestinian protest occurred on the 85th anniversary of Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass, where in Nazi Germany, there were synagogues, Jewish businesses, and Jews attacked in the streets, 1938, and it was further intensified the persecution of Jews in Nazi Germany, which of course led to in the end, the final solution and the Holocaust and the murder of 6 million Jews. Now, the Premier, Jacinta Allan, her first statement was, I reaffirm my call for Victorians to show each other love, care, and support in these difficult times. It is our diversity that makes us great and our compassion that unites us. There is never any place for anti-Semitism or Islamophobia in Victoria. And the next day she said, I was briefed by Victoria Police on the events of last night. What we saw on the streets was deeply disturbing, and I've spoken to Victoria Police about an increased police presence in the local area following the incidents on Hawthorne Road. There's a Victoria Police shortage. 43 police desks are shut during off-peak times, and they're having to lower the admission standards to those who failed the psych tests. So where are you going to get all these police from? We cannot let violence in the Middle East beget violence on the streets of Melbourne. This is no place for violence, hatred, and insightful behaviour in Victoria, and it is unacceptable that faith communities feel unsafe in their own places of worship and in their neighbourhoods. It was unacceptable that this was the experience of Melbourne's Jewish community last night. All communities have the right to come together and grieve and support each other, and everyone has a right to peaceful protest, but not at the expense of the safety of others. People from every corner of the world have chosen Melbourne and Victoria as their home because they know that they can practice their faith and celebrate their culture in a community that welcomes and respects this diversity. Victorians are proud to be known for this, but we must make sure that this is still the case. It is our diversity that makes us great. It is our compassion that unites us, but there is never any place for anti-Semitism or Islamophobia in Victoria. We continue to support every member of our multi-faith community's safety and harmony must be the priority, not end the grief, hurt, and the pain. So how many multicultural slogans have gone off on your bingo cards? So of course we have had that diversity is our strength, proud multicultural. Let's see, Liberal opposition leader John Pesutto. This was his first attempt at a statement. As you can see, they all had a couple of goes. Maybe a speechwriter got involved. Victoria is a proudly multicultural state. Bingo, renowned for its diversity and harmony. Bingo, the ugly scenes we have witnessed tonight are unacceptable. There is no place for anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, prejudice, or hatred in our state. Okay, that was take one. Take two from John Pesutto. We strongly condemn last night's violence in Caulfield. a cherished and diverse area of Melbourne and home to many of our Jewish community. These types of anti-Semitic incidents are completely unacceptable, have no place in Victoria and Australia. We call for calm and unity during this challenging time. Victoria stands as a beacon of diversity and harmony. Bingo, built upon the rich tapestry of our multicultural heritage. Bingo, an enduring foundation of our common bond of humanity. Acts of violence or discrimination have no place in society that values diversity and understanding. Australia upholds stringent anti-vilification laws and is imperative that these laws are enforced. Any form of discrimination or hostile towards a particular religious or cultural group undermines the very fabric of our inclusive society. Bingo. We encourage a united stance against such acts, reinforcing the importance of respecting and protecting every individual right to practice their faith without fear of persecution or intimidation. In the moment of tension, we must seek to de-escalation, support one another, and reaffirm our commitment to a society that celebrates diversity, bingo, and embraces mutual respect. Are you all keeping score in the comments there about how many multicultural buzzwords there? There was at least amongst all of those, the three lots of statements that I read out, probably about 10, at least 10, or maybe even a dozen. Now, David Southwick, he has put out another statement tonight on his Twitter X. On Friday night, a line was crossed. The state and federal governments must act. This isn't about politics, about the safety and security for each and every Victorian. It is about the type of Victoria we want to live in. We are a great multicultural state. Bingo. Where everyone should feel safe, respected, and celebrated for who they are. Bingo. This week in Parliament, I'll be seeking explanation, demanding action. If you target and disrupt a community, you should be moved on. If you incite violence, you should leave in handcuffs. Words are important. We need leadership and action. It's now or never. And Peter Dutton, he put out a statement on Saturday. The behaviour we saw last night in Caulfield by individuals provocatively protesting in an area home to many people of the Jewish faith was absolutely disgusting. It was a deliberate act of incitement designed to end in violence and predictably did. These sins have no place in our country and should be totally and utterly condemned. The Jewish community in Australia is rightly scared for their safety at the moment, and we all have a responsibility to call out vile anti-Semitism when it rears its ugly head, as it did last night in Caulfield. Enough is enough. Now, as a libertarian who supports free speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of movement, it is very dangerous in these times of crisis and unrest, where there is a risk that governments rush through laws that restrict those freedoms, because they are eventually they particularly turned against white people and Christian people. I mean, has the Racial and Religious Tolerance Acts in Victoria, has it ever been used to prosecute somebody who has disparaged Christians and white people? Not to my knowledge. I'm happy to be corrected. Now, we saw more incidents over the weekend, and so 9 News Melbourne tonight did a summary, which of course featured you-know-who, Mr. Devere Abramovich.
Good evening. Victoria's religious and political leaders are calling for calm after a weekend of violence on the streets sparked by the conflict in the Middle East. As Eliza Rugg reports, a cyclist carrying an Israeli flag was attacked on Chapel Street.
Chapel Street, outside Bridie O'Reilly's, just before 8 o'clock last night.
It was first a lady that approached me, started to argue me about why do you support Israel.
Ronan Martin Cohen was part of an Israeli convoy when he says he was ambushed by the woman, then 2 men.
And I was pushed to the ground and then they kicked me. Mainly in the chest and back.
Police are investigating. They're also trying to identify the driver of this Toyota Hilux ute that mounted a curb in Caulfield on Friday, narrowly missing a man and a woman holding up Israeli flags.
There's an epidemic of anti-Semitism which is spiralling out of control.
Further up Hawthorne Road, a synagogue was evacuated after a protest outside turned ugly.
We do not want to see again a repeat of what occurred on Friday night.
It's led to an extra 60 police being put on patrol in the area. Some want more.
I'm not satisfied at this point with what the government's doing on this. I think it's been caught a little flat-footed.
Organisers of Friday's protest have since apologised, stating they didn't realise the synagogue was metres away, adding the event was meant as a show of support for a Palestinian-owned burger restaurant they believe was torched in a hate crime. The Islamic Society of Victoria says it's not an isolated incident, and people peacefully attending pro-Palestine protests in the city are also copping abuse.
Being accused of supporting terrorism, and that is creating a really unsafe environment for many Muslims. We don't want any aggression, we don't want any violence, and we don't want any hate.
Let's make sure that Melbourne, which is a tolerant, pluralistic, accepting city, is not torn apart by these tensions.
Eliza, extra police patrols have started in the inner southeast tonight.
Yes, Pete, and those patrols will take place day and night for the next 2 weeks around areas of worship like here in St Kilda, as well as in Caulfield and Balaclava as well. After that 2-week period, police will decide what resources are needed in those areas. In the meantime, we've just got word of another Free Palestine protest that we haven't seen before yet in Melbourne. School students are being encouraged to join a lunchtime walkout on November 23. At lunchtime, they're being encouraged to walk out of school essentially and take part in this protest, and it will end up on the steps of Flinders Street Station. Pete.
Eliza Rugg reporting.
Great. That's bound to go well. Indoctrinating the students, young people, to get involved in this. I mean, they always like to start them young. So this was the statement put out by Free Palestine Melbourne. They realized that it was bad PR, bad optics. So they said they claimed they were unaware there was a synagogue across the park. We apologize to local Jewish community for the protest location led to evacuation of the synagogue, for the fear they may have felt and the cancellation of Shabbat. We should not have gathered in this location. It was never our intention to disrupt it or intimidate Jewish worshippers. Though at the weekly free pro-Palestine rally, whatever it's called these days, there are still quite, well, explicitly anti-Israel signs here. So this one, let's clean the world from rubbish. And so basically calling for the abolition of Israel, to put it mildly. And so there was spotted outside this this convenience store in Melbourne, boycott with a cross through the Israeli flag, which of course has the blue Star of David. Now I won't name the business there, but they claim that it was stuck on there by somebody, and they took it down when it was alerted to them. Now, the Burgertory CEO, he did appear at Sunday's rally, Hash Tayeh, on the stage, and gave a speech.
In the past weeks, as I advocated for peace and an immediate ceasefire and the rights of the Palestinian people, my own establishment, Burgertory in Caulfield, became a target. Staff threatened and harassed, all in an attempt to silence my support. And the other day, in a cruel act of arson, our store was reduced to ashes. To those who sought to silence us with hate and violence, I say, you will not succeed. Love and unity will always prevail.
Now, up in Sydney, things are just as tense. So there was a pro-Palestine convoy that was organised by convicted criminal and terrorist sympathiser Zaky Mullah. So he was the first Australian charged with terrorism offences after he threatened to blow up the offices of ASIO and DFAT in 2003. While he was acquitted of planning a terror attack, he was convicted of threatening to kill Commonwealth officials and given a 2.5-year jail term. And so Mullah was asked if he expected the event to be calm at the motorcade's meeting point in Lidcombe. It has to be, he said. We have no choice. And Zaky Mullah you might remember he was invited by the Q&A producers into the studio audience in 2015. This is when ISIS were on their rampage in Iraq and Syria, and the then Abbott government was proposing laws to strip citizenship of those who fight overseas, which stripping dual citizenship, that was struck down by the High Court last week in their controversial decision. They've got another controversial decision that they handed down last week, which I'll get to. So he asked Steve Chobo, I think it was the then Justice Minister, about these laws, and he said, "I'd be happy to see you deported." And then Zeki Miller said, "Oh, you've justified people going to fight with ISIS." And Shane Jones said, "Oh, that's out of context," and led an Abbott government boycott of Q&A. But Q&A is still on the air 8 years later, and they're having a Israel-Palestine panel special it's just going to be starting in about 5 minutes. So Tim Watts, the Assistant Foreign Minister, Francesca Albanese. So she has the same name as the Prime Minister. It's great to have an Albanese actually in Australia for once. UN Special Rapporteur for Palestinian territories, Dave Sharma, former Australian ambassador to Israel and former MP for Wentworth, which is home to most of Sydney's Jews, Nasser Massani, president of the Australian Palestinian Advocacy Network, and Mark Liebler, chairman, Australia, Israel and Jewish Affairs Council, Old Leibs. Now, the the ABC News Twitter X account deleted this tweet where it said Mark Liebler is the chairman of the Australia, Israel and Jewish Affairs Council, who coordinated the letter signed by 6 former PMs to express their support for Israel. Because the official story is that the prime ministers came up with this letter themselves, and I think it was published by the Zionist Federation of Australia, which is chaired by Liebler's son, Jeremy Liebler. And I did wonder how they're going to control the studio audience tonight. But based on security advice, there won't be a live audience. So they'll be taking video questions and also via Skype. I mean, got to give credit to Mark Liebler coming on in what is normally a hostile environment, going head to head, because there were some Jewish Australian activists who thought that the ABC shouldn't platform Nasser Mashani, but Mark Liebler is still turning up to debate. So it might actually be a Q&A episode worth watching, because it does seem to have it's certainly a panel that will have some disagreements. A change for Q&A. Now, when I think, I'm not sure if they were members of this convoy, this motorcade, but there was a pro-Israeli gathering, a vigil, because there's still over 200 hostages being held by Hamas. I just died there, I think. My internet just died. I'm not with Optus, by the way, which I'll get to the second Optus cock up in a moment. Please let me know in the comments whether it's all back here. So down at Coogee Beach, this is one of the cars that turned up.
ISIS and
what it comes down to. Yeah. You guys are bombing them just because they're Muslim. That's what it comes down to.
Yes, sure, yes. Where are kidnapped children?
You're bombing children. You're bombing 10,000 children. You bombed 10,000 children.
Yes, okay, keep going. Go back to your area.
And now there was a Jewish man in Sydney who was hospitalized after allegedly being the victim of an anti-Semitic attack. So Sky News ground at a suburb in South Sydney came upon a poster for a pro-Palestine rally that had already been taken place. The poster was half torn down and the man tore down the rest, according to the report. Another man in the playground saw him do this, approached to ask if he supported Israel, then became threatening. The report said, "I'll murder you," the suspect reportedly said. Jewish man phoned police but found himself surrounded by an angry crowd of men and women yelling the insults and then was hit in the face and fell to the ground, according to reports. 3 men proceeded to kick and punch the victim, according to reports, yelling slurs such as pro-Jew dog. Passers-by called the police. The attackers had fled. Police have asked witnesses come forward and realizing CCTV footage. The victim was hospitalized for 4 days with injuries such as fractures to spine, facial injuries, and concussion. He told Sky News Australia felt very lucky to be alive. Now, I can't comprehend, like, obviously, this is a savage assault, I have to say, alleged assault, but what is with these pro-Palestinian activists, like that crazy bitch in Chapel Street, attacking that man on the motorcycle with the Israeli flag? Are they not in control of their emotions that they just attack, physically attack, and people who they have a political grievance with? This is not how we sort out differences here in Australia. I mean, we obviously have the right to free speech, free assembly, right to protest should always be respectful. But, well, it's the same with Antifa as well. They're never in control of their emotions. That's why they always get violent. I mean, this is why it is so tense out in these protests, because it is full of people who cannot control their emotions. That is what it comes down to, and there is no excuse. There is no. You can't argue provocation because these people aren't hurting anybody. I mean, they're people in Australia. That obviously they have a position on the Israel-Hamas war, but they are not the one. They are just innocent people here in Australia, and as innocent as all of the civilians who have been killed in Israel and Gaza. Now, I mentioned before that what really concerns me about this time is that there will be more anti-free speech laws passed in the name of combating hate and incitements. And New South Wales, the Premier Chris Minns, well, he had already just upped the penalties for racial and religious vilification. Now going to go further. This is on 7 News Sydney.
The state government admits its laws are failing following a rise in anti-Semitic behaviour across Sydney. Under current racial vilification legislation, offences are hard to prosecute. But now the Premier says it's time to get tough.
Coogee on Saturday. A Jewish-owned Surrey Hills cafe later that night. Melbourne yesterday.
Pushed me to the road. I was lying on the road and they kicked me in the chest and the back.
And Melbourne the night before. All provocative acts targeting Jewish enclaves and all condemned.
It is vital at this time that people in positions of leadership exercise that leadership.
Racial vilification laws exist, but
it can't be toothless. You've got to have a situation where if somebody where it does result in charges.
Section 93Z of the Crimes Act outlaws intentionally or recklessly threatening or inciting violence based on race, religion, sex, but in 5 years, 0 successful prosecutions.
The problem really comes down to the legal meaning of the word incites. It has a much narrower legal meaning than most people would expect.
We are looking at that legislation to make sure that it's working.
And on that, the Palestine Action Group finds common ground with the Jewish lobby.
We're against all forms of racism. That includes anti-Palestinian and anti-Arab and anti-Muslim racism, and of course it includes anti-Semitism as well.
There was another Palestinian rally today.
End to genocide.
That was in our nation's capital, and rallies will continue here in Sydney weekly too. But for the government, free speech is not free.
Extra resources to police them cost $1 million a week, the Premier says. The force is already under-resourced.
These are operational shifts that would normally be used in a command to protect the community.
So New South Wales will ask the federal government to help pay for it. Robert Obadia, 7 News.
Yes, so more tougher laws supposedly to crack down on hate and incitement coming to New South Wales. So now the state Liberal opposition in New South Wales, Mark Speakman, he has expressed concerns that these laws could curtail legitimate political debate, which I mean, you do get a flicker every now and then from the Liberals in standing up for free speech. I mean, you saw John Pesutto here in Victoria, but they're saying that he supports the Racial and Religious Tolerance Act, which has had a successful prosecution and conviction of Blair Cottrell, Neil Erickson and Chris Shortis over that mock beheading of a dummy in Bendigo in 2015, where the fake blood poured out. They got I think it was a $3,000 fine each, or $2,000 fine. Somebody will be able to correct me. It was something in the thousands there. But again, that proves my point that these laws, it's certainly not surprising that both Jewish activists and pro-Palestinian activists, we want these anti-racism and anti-blasphemy laws because, well, as I just said, they're only used to prosecute white people and Christians. I mean, we saw it wasn't criminal, but Sonia Kruger brought before the New South Wales Anti-Discrimination Tribunal for saying that she wanted Muslim immigration banned in 2017. Apparently, 20 National Socialist Network members in Melbourne, that's the real threat, not these mob of Muslims in suburbs and in cities. And The Age on Sunday did a full feature article. Why is it so hard to stop neo-Nazi public hate? And speaks to a guess who, Cass Ross, but did not feature a photo of her. So there's a photo of the Police Association of Victoria Chief Wayne Gatt. You tell us what our job is. There's a difference between causing offence and stopping a criminal offence. There's also Julie Nathan, a researcher, executive council of Australian Jury, well known for publishing the Anti-Semitism in Australia report. She obviously has some real anti-Semitism to report on now. Normally the report is just what the National Socialist Network and other white nationalists say online, like De Vere. Now he has some actual real threats to the Jewish community, not just, I mean, De Vere 6 months ago was getting triggered by a swastika that was drawn into the pavement in a town in the middle of nowhere in rural Victoria. They didn't include a photo of Cass Ross because, like, I don't think they could fit her whole face on this story. It is just so big there. Now there is some decent points made that these laws they can have a counterproductive effect. And of course, the National Socialist Network, Thomas Sowell, I mean, they've already moved on to the blue octopus as a symbol of anti-Semitism there. So they've already switched there. But apparently Victoria needed special laws because, I mean, basically that's all they do. The NSN, some online talk, and then out on the street with a poster and some Nazi salutes, well, when it was legal, and stickering, which, I mean, we obviously are seeing much more extreme signs at these rallies, these pro-Palestine rallies. And another thing, while I mention the lack of emotional control in these pro-Palestinian activists tearing down the images of Israeli hostages by Hamas. Why would you do that? I mean, they're human beings being deprived of their liberty. I mean, this is the other thing. You can't feel sympathy for the innocents on both sides here. So we have obviously we are seeing probably what we are seeing play out on the ground in Gaza. It is a humanitarian catastrophe, but it's what Hamas wants. They want civilians and children to die. That's why they use them as human shields and use hospitals and other civilian infrastructure. I mean, there was a cartoon in I think it was in the Washington Post, which shows is Hamas, how dare Israel attack civilians, and it has all of children strapped to them. But Israel is playing into Hamas's hands to a T. I mean, Israel claims they have no choice but to destroy Hamas, but you can't destroy an idea and ideology. And continuing the continuing deaths of Gaza civilians and children is only going to radicalize more Palestinians to become martyrs for Hamas or some other Islamic group. Now, Hamas, in part, they launched their attack to suspend the negotiation of the Abraham Accords up in the Middle East. And so Saudi Arabia withdrew from the Abraham Accords with Israel, which would be to recognize Israel and establish diplomatic relations. Now the unthinkable has happened. So the Iranian president, Ebrahim Raisi, has gone to the Gaza summit in Saudi Arabia. And now these are two Islamic states that hate each other, because Saudi Arabia is Sunni Arabian, while Iran is Shia Persian. There is a power struggle in the Middle East for who will be the regional superpower, but now they're shaking hands. And also Bashar al-Assad from Syria, he has turned up. He is a secular dictator. The Ba'athist Party is a Arab National Socialist Party. So you have all the three different factions across the Middle East, Islamic majority countries, all coming together, which is probably what Hamas wanted. I mean, they wanted the Muslim world to unite against Israel. And of course, Hamas, they don't live in Gaza. They're given safe haven in Qatar. I mean, why doesn't Israel attack Qatar? And despite Qatar hosting Hamas, they were allowed to host the 2022 FIFA World Cup. I mean, our Western principles and values, I mean, they can be bought by oil money. And Saudi Arabia has done the same, even though they did 9/11, and the United States government covered up the Saudi government's involvement in 9/11, because Saudi Arabia has bought the 2034 World Cup as well. I mean, they don't recognize Israel. Will that be Will there be a flashpoint for that, or is when it comes to, again, can they just buy it? Just money talk there. So yes, it is a lose-lose situation. People are going to continue to die. Israel is not going to be able to eradicate Hamas. There's going to be more Palestinian Gazans. Obviously, Netanyahu, he is politically weak. He feels that this is what he has to do because it was his intelligence failure on October the 7th that led to the Hamas attack. I mean, obviously, there's some conspiracy theories that maybe the Israeli intelligence let it happen, like sort of like the conspiracy theories about the United States government let 9/11 happen, but this is not the program for that. That is for the theorists. Now, Penny Wong on Insiders yesterday said the Albanese government would welcome work towards a ceasefire because this is what these rallies, the slogan now is ceasefire now, but she said that a ceasefire shouldn't be one-sided. Of course, Hamas broke a ceasefire on October 7. Though Penny Wong, she must know that she's speaking in a dream world. There is not going to be a ceasefire, and there's certainly not going to be a two-state solution in probably our lifetimes there. So obviously Penny Wong is trying to say the right thing and placate, strike a middle ground, but also placate Labor's Muslim voters who they hold those seats in Western Sydney and outer Melbourne there. And the Labor Party knows that demographics is destiny. They know how to get the multicultural vote. The Liberals are terrible at it. And so they know that, well, Muslims outnumber Jews 2-1. The Victorian Liberals, they hold all of the seats around Melbourne's Jewbelt at a state level, and also in Sydney as well. But at a federal level, the Liberals hold none of the Jewbelt seats. So 2 are held by Labor, Josh Burns and Michelle Najaraja, and 2 by the Teals, Monique Ryan and Zoe Daniel, and Wentworth in Sydney is held by Allegra Spender. Now, Remembrance Day here in Australia, one of the war memorials in the suburb of Montrose was vandalised with a ceasefire, absolutely disgusting. And the White Rose Society, they put out an alert on their Telegram channel. I think I've got it here, that approximately 10 members of the NSN at Federation Square likely head for the Shrine of Remembrance Day in their poorly fitting dress pants, wearing shirts, wearing poppies. Stay safe and stay alert. I mean, as if Antifa are going to go to the Shrine of Remembrance for Remembrance Day. I mean, that's obviously they're trying to say, look, the Nazi threat is they're still on the streets here. Be afraid. Now, we also had this week a Kmart. They withdrew their Happy Hamas bags. So the Australian Jewish Association, which is pretty much a one-man band by Dr. David Adler. So he said, Kmart stuff up. Check out the special Christmas bag currently available via Kmart online. Yes, it's real. Although this is potentially funny, the AGA committee has tossed around some non-PC jokes. It's really not a good look. We suspect some product manager may cause the company some embarrassment. So we've written to Wesfarmers corporate suggesting the product be pulled, and it was. I know that there was a mass of people trying to buy it online, but they were all refunded there. But yes, it is unfortunate. Merry, obviously it's a ham bag, but yes, saying Merry Hamas, yes, quite an unfortunate slogan in the current environment. It reminds me of, what is that? There was that flower arrangement in the Melbourne CBD about 15 years ago. Red and white that unfortunately was in the shape of a swastika. Now on to some other Australian news, and Airbus Elbow, fresh from his trip to Beijing to meet Xi Jinping, and they flattered the CCP, the praise on Elbow, calling him a handsome boy. And they were all glowing, the local CCP-controlled media, about Australia's finally come to their senses. And now Anthony Albanese, he's back in Australia now for the sitting week. But last week he was in the Cook Islands for the Pacific Islands Forum, and he signed a security agreement with Tuvalu, which also will see Australia accept climate refugees from Tuvalu. So it's called the Falpili. So it's a Tuvaluan word for traditional values of good neighbors, care, and mutual respect. So we'll start with 280 climate refugees from Tuvalu, because apparently climate change is going to sink the island. Now, there's only 12,000 people who live on Tuvalu. So if we have to take them all, it's not that significant amount, but it all adds up. And the only reason why Australia is not in a real recession, it isn't a per capita recession, is because of immigration. But look at real household gross disposable income. Australia is the worst in the OECD, minus 5.1%. And I think that's just confirmed how a lot of households are feeling. I mean, inflation is still rampant. Prices are still going up. So we are still seeing our living standards reduce. Now, there was the interest rate rise on Melbourne Cup Day, which certainly that contracting the money supply, that's certainly not going to increase the supply of electricity. The supply of electricity is going down. Anthony Albanese hasn't saved you $275 on your power bill. Chris Bowen's clean energy revolution is just going to increase the price of electricity. They're still going to build all those transmission lines from these solar and wind farms. And of course, if power reliability wasn't enough of an issue, we now have internet reliability. I mean, I sometimes have it here. So Optus, their entire network went down from 4 a.m. Wednesday until about the mid-afternoon. And so Optus now knows what is the reason behind this outage. And it was a routine software upgrade, which knocked out the entire internet for everyone on the Optus network. There were businesses couldn't take EFT payments. People on Optus couldn't access the internet or even call 000. And I think it was a lot of wake-up call for a lot of people about the dangers of cashless society. I think people will carry a bit more cash from now on, because a cashless society will only happen if we allow it to happen. It's always paying with cash. It's always legal tender. And the Optus CEO, well, she is living on borrowed time. Kelly Bayer Rosemarian, she did a few interviews on Wednesday, and that was it. In fact, she seemed to disparage a North Sydney barber, which couldn't do business because they couldn't receive EAT payments, saying that, she said, that seems like one of the few things you could do without connectivity. And that's just an unnecessary remark. And so the owner of manager of North Sydney Barbers said it's a bit much for her to throw me under the bus when she can't even do her job. I mean, Jake Azar would be able to do his job if she was able to do her job. Now, Optus is owned by Singtel, which is Singapore Telecommunications, so it's not an Australian-owned company. I'm not with Optus, thankfully, so my Wednesday wasn't disrupted. And of course, Optus previously had that data hack by ransomers, which leaked both current and former customers' personal information to the dark web. So I think Qantas is cheering at the moment because they are no longer Australia's most hated company. They're thinking, phew, at least we've never done anything like this. So yes, Vodafone and Telstra, of course, are the market winners. I remember 20 years ago, Telstra was the big villain, but not these days. They have a pretty good reputation. Now, on to the latest controversial decision of our High Court. Well, to put it mildly, and that is our High Court overturning its own precedent from 20 years ago. The Albanese government is being forced to release 92 other non-citizens being held in detention who cannot be deported to their home countries. So the High Court ruled that indefinite detention is unlawful. And so refugee and asylum seeker advocates celebrated an important victory, though the lawyers in the High Court were acting on behalf of a Rohingya Muslim who came illegally to Australia on a boat back in 2012, thanks to the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd disastrous border policy. He was convicted of raping a 10-year-old boy, and now he is out on the street because, well, apparently, you don't get long in Australia for raping a 10-year-old boy. Absolutely disgusting. He is out on the street. We're not even allowed to know his name. So he's known as NZYX. So he could be in your neighborhood, near where your family lives. And now the Albanese government says, "Oh, we're making sure that the community is safe." Or there's strict conditions on their visas, but I mean, I assume they're not having ankle bracelets. So there's also, I'm not sure if this one is this convicted pedophile. And there was also a Malaysian political assassin who is now free on the streets in Australia, or is actually sentenced to death in Malaysia for assassinating a politician's wife. So our High Court seems to be on the path for a lot of very lefty decisions. Some might call it judicial activism, but you have to be very careful about what you say about our judiciary, because they can claim contempt of court, as they tried to 3 Turnbull government ministers in 2017. Now, some good news is that the Albanese government is it's deciding to, at the moment, revise its misinformation bill because there was no exemption for a religious belief. So you could be accused of, you could be censored on social media for misinformation for stating a religious belief, which could be, I don't know, how would they disprove that? Because religion is a belief. So this was the 7 News Sydney report.
Serious concerns around a lack of religious protections have resulted in the federal government delaying the introduction of its signature misinformation legislation. Designed to combat false and misleading information online, the proposed laws didn't include exemptions for religious expressions.
They wanted to exempt comedians from the bill, but not people expressing their deeply held religious beliefs.
The opposition claims the bill is an attack on free speech and wants it scrapped.
So the Babylon Bee and the Pesutto Advocate and the Shovel, they would be exempt, even though actually people do have trouble distinguishing between fact and satire these days. Again, the Liberal opposition choosing to oppose this bill, even though they were involved in drafting out the Morrison government. I mean, they sort of have some relapses into supporting free speech, but certainly don't count on them. Now let's go over to the UK, where Remembrance Day, where it is known as Armistice Day, the November the 11th, and then on the Sunday it's Remembrance Sunday. It is their big Veterans War Remembrance Day. I think us here, because obviously Anzac Day is our most sacred remembering the fallen day. Those British expats in our chat will inform us here how sacrosanct Armistice Day is in the UK. And now there was a pro-Palestine rally that did take place in London, though it did not go past the cenotaph, but it was certainly billed by the mainstream media, or it could be desecrated. And Twitter X allowed Tommy Robinson, the founder of the English Defence League, back on. And Tommy Robinson, real name Stephen Yaxley Lennon, he obviously wanted to make an impact that he was back, and so he posted on his Twitter X that he would go to defend the cenotaph. Now, Britain's white nationalist leaders such as Nick Griffin and Mark Collette told their followers not to go. They believed it would be a media trap, and then obviously the intellectual dark-web wankers, the studio boys, they would just stay at home and decide, depending on what unfolds, decide whether they would support what Tommy and the EDL and what's the other one, the Football Lads Alliance did. They would just sit back, and because they just commentate in their comfy studio chairs. They would never hardly any of them have ever gone to a rally. And Douglas Murray, who encouraged people to go to the cenotaph on Twitter, he was nowhere to be seen in London on that day, but he was extremely visible when he was in Israel. He's Mr. Everywhere at the moment when it comes to appearing on programs, and of course in Israel, there he is with his press flap jacket and his helmet. I wonder if the photographer is wearing that flap jacket and helmet, because often in these situations, it's all for show, and the cameraman is just in like casual clothes there. So he wasn't there. But to his credit, Calvin Robertson, who was sacked from GB News because he stood by Dan Wharton, and Lawrence Fox. Lawrence Fox wasn't there. He was on a plane somewhere. I don't know. But Calvin Robertson was there at the cenotaph. So was Fred Paul, one of the hosts of Alan Jones's ADH TV. So credit to them putting their making a stand and turning up there, because of course you don't know who's going to turn up, whether there's going to be bad actors there. And the bad actors, of course, turned out to be the Met Police, even though the Tommy Robinson and the other EDL and Football Lads had turned up there to protect this cenotaph. They tried to block the entry in, and they were having none of that. So this was probably the most tense moment here. Now, I know that Piers Morgan, of course, he found that appalling, and Rishi Sunak put out a statement condemning both sides. So this is what he put out. I condemn the violent, wholly unacceptable scenes that we have seen today from the EDL and associated groups and Hamas sympathizers attending the National March for Palestine. Those despicable actions of a minority of people undermine those who have chosen to express their views peacefully. Remembrance Weekend is a time for us to come together as a nation and remember those who fought and died for our freedoms. What we have seen today does not defend the honor of our armed forces, but utterly disrespects them. It is true for EDL thugs attacking police officers and trespassing on the cenotaph, and it is true for those singing anti-Semitic chants and brandishing pro-Hamas signs and clothing on today's protest. The fear and intimidation the Jewish community have experienced over the weekend is deplorable. All criminality must be met with the full and swift force of the law, which is what I'm told the Met Police Commissioner on Wednesday. That is when they are accountable for, and is what I expect. I'll be meeting with the Met Police Commissioner in the coming days. I'll tell you, he will not be meeting with the Met Commissioner anymore, and that is Suella Braverman. She has been sacked by Rishi Sunak in a reshuffle, and David Cameron was seen going into number 10 Downing Street. Now, he's in the House of Lords now, so he can be brought back into the cabinet. It's not unprecedented, though it is unusual. And now remember, David Cameron back in the day called the EDL sick, and now Lady of Shalott calls the traitor Tommy Robinson. Though Tommy Robinson back in the day was my red pill. He made me realize that, hey, if you want this post-modern liberal society, Islam, mass Muslim immigration is incompatible with it. Certainly, his conduct of recent years hasn't been in the same vein as that of his earlier activism. And certainly, I don't know if he regrets wearing that Mossad shirt, but he should. That was not wise. I mean, no, he wouldn't wear an MI5 shirt or a CIA shirt, that's for sure. Lady of Shalott also has said here, am I going to play? Where is it here? Are you going to play the clip of the Muslim gentleman saying that Hitler was great? I haven't got it with me, but that certainly took place. And there was some Extinction Rebellion brats who were disrespectful at, I think it was Trafalgar Square. I try to get as many clips as I can for the show, but I can't get them all. One clip I have got is Tommy talking to the mainstream media. One of the benefits of him being back on X is that he's able to play his comments to the media that they don't play themselves. So this was him talking about after because when there was it hit 11 a.m., the 2 minutes of silence, it was dead silent. So this is what Tommy said to the media.
I don't understand why they were trying to block people getting to the cenotaph. I really don't understand it. There was no opposition here other than patriotic people. They shouldn't have been doing it. It looked like they were trying to provoke a reaction. So
go and sell it to your left and right.
Silence, so I think it went successfully.
What do you think the mainstream are going to say?
The mainstream are going to say that, the mainstream will always say that everyone's far right and everyone's a hooligan, yeah? Because that's what they say. Some people will view the men that turned up today as far right hooligans, and other people will see them as the last line of defence. It's good to be back on Twitter. Don't believe what you read. Don't believe the mainstream. We do have a problem with jihadists. We don't have a problem with ordinary Muslims, right? Let's talk to this gentleman. Look, this gentleman here. He's a Pakistani journalist. And I know, look. Far right.
Mum has no idea. Mum has no idea. It's going to be amazing. So much. Walking towards Trafalgar Square now.
And Tommy Robinson, he's always been a civic nationalist, so shouldn't be surprised that he's embracing Londoners of colour there. So Lady of Shalott says that is Mayor Tulsi on the left. And Lady of Charlotte, that's the next story that I was going to cover. Nigel Farage, he is in Australia, appearing in the ITV show I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, which is filmed in the Queensland jungle every November. He will get a nice paycheck from ITV there, but it won't be going into a cook's bank account. I mean, Nigel Farage, he really got exposed courts for their deliberate political discrimination against him, and you have to give him credit. He really turned the tide on the debanking, you would say, not trend, but phenomena. So he has to be given credit there, as he has to be given credit for Brexit as well. We have to give people like Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson credit is where it's due. And Nigel Farage, he's not an MP anymore like Matt Hancock was when he went on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here last year. So, I mean, we'll see how he goes. I mean, obviously, given that he does have a merchant banker background. I mean, he does speak in an aristocratic way. That's probably why the ITV producers, yes, let's stick this suit-wearing banker, ex-politician, TV host into the jungle and see what happens there. Lady Charlotte says, Coutts and NatWest are horrible. They were my old bank in the UK. I'm glad that I've had nothing to do with them here. Now, let's finish off in the United States, where breaking news from there is that Tim Scott, the Republican senator of South Carolina, has dropped out. So there's no, so that's the end of the token black candidate in the Republican race. But there is, of course, Vivek Ramaswamy, the young Indian, and of course Nikki Haley, the Indian woman, former South Carolina governor. There is Chris Christie, obviously for the body positivity sect, and Mike Pence, he's already gone. And there, of course, is Ron DeSantis of Florida. Now, obviously, the Republican politicians, there have been many who've expressed their view that the U.S. taxpayer should not fund it seems like never-ending war in Ukraine. But when it comes to Israel, that's, well, whatever you need, we'll give you.
2 hours for a serious debate on the issues that matter most.
We have anti-Semitism all over our college campuses.
We will stand with Israel
to support Israel with whatever they need, whenever they need it. It is not that Israel needs America. America needs Israel.
The founding vision of Israel is America is here, no matter what it is you need at any time, to preserve the state of Israel. With a question from Matthew Brooks, the CEO of the Republican Jewish Coalition.
Jewish students across the country are threatened. Surge of anti-Semitism across this country. Anti-Semitism.
Any campus that allows for anti-Semitism, you should lose your federal funding today. I would deport you.
No, it's the anti-Semitism that's spiraling out of control.
Jewish students and synagogues.
Anti-Semitism is just as awful as racism. The Jewish people
providing Israel with the $14 billion that they need. We are 100% undeniably standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel.
When we make sure that we have the backs of our friends, whether it's in Israel.
Anti-Semitic. Horrible stuff. Making sure that Israel and that Israel situation, Israel must be defended. On behalf of the Republican National Committee and all of us at NBC News, good night, everyone from Miami.
And now Bayaki said, wow, I was just on Q&A live stream and it's going off. But the actual panel itself, that's good. It sounds like it was more entertaining than that debate. Although Vivek, of course, he tells the MAGA Republicans what they want to hear. He wants to be the nominee if Trump, for some reason, cannot be. But of course, always be careful with someone who tells you what you want to hear. But he certainly had the right write lines against Nikki Haley. She didn't like when he mentioned that her daughter was on TikTok when she rages against it. But this was probably his best zinger on the night.
The fact of the matter is the Republican Party is not that much better. You have the likes of Nikki Haley, who stepped down from her time at the UN. Bankrupt or in debt was her family. Then she becomes a military contractor. She joins the board of Boeing and otherwise, and is now a multimillionaire. So I think that that's wrong when Republicans do it or Democrats do it. That's the choice we face. Do you want a leader from a different generation who's going to put this country first? Or do you want Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels?
All right,
Mr. In which case we've got two of them on stage tonight.
Introducing Dickie Haley, the new Rhino NPC politician. And of course, they're the neocons. I think that they're back in business, and Nikki Haley is their girl. I mean, she ticks the identity boxes. I mean, she always tells us that she's a black and brown girl. She's a brown girl in a black and white America. And Nikki Haley, she is also told Republicans to not have a abortion now as a contentious issue. So she has said, we don't need to divide America over this issue anymore. This is what she told the debate stage, and this is because in the midterms, the voters of Ohio voted to enshrine abortion until birth in their constitution. So that passed with 56.6% to 43.4%. And there was slightly a bit more who voted to legalize marijuana. Now, the pro-life laws of Ohio are still on the books. They have to be struck down by their Supreme Court now, which is in charge of enforcing this new constitutional amendment, though the Ohio Supreme Court has majority pro-life justices there. But obviously, I'm 100% pro-life, but I'm also a Democrat, and you can't thumb your nose at what the people have voted for in their constitution. And it does seem that Roe versus Wade hasn't had the flow-on effect for the pro-life movement that many of us were hoping. In fact, quite the opposite now. When abortion comes for a vote on a ballot initiative, abortion wins. And now the Republicans are running from the abortion issue because their polling shows that that's the reason why there was no red wave in November last year, because Democrats and independents turned out to vote for Democrats because they're 100% pro-abortion. That's in part why Fetterman won. And it's really, really sad. But I mean, it turns out that the US is no better when it comes to Australia and Victoria when it comes to loving abortion. I mean, this is what Mike Cernovich put out. Ohio Trump won it bigly. Tonight, Ohio Issue 1 passes. Americans love abortions. We now have conclusive proof. Not that we need more why the GOP is underperforming. It's not Trump, it's abortion. Yes, it seems that women in America, like women in Australia, they still want Plan D, Plan Death. So obviously, Plan A, I guess, is condom or the pill. Plan B, morning after pill. Plan C, I guess, have the baby. And yes, Plan D for death is what I'll call it. Now, I saw that Dominic Carbony is in the chat. Hello, Dom. Great to see you. It's not anti-Semitism that is spreading. It's the new COVID. Yes, there's another COVID wave at the moment. You're absolutely right, Dom. The sniffles are back, and yeah, the usual. Well, we'll probably get to it on the Theorist tomorrow night because, well, last week YouTube didn't like our Theorist episode. A way to pull the wool over our eyes and distract you with rumors of war. Read the Bible; it's all in there. And also, Gabriel Mare, host of Australia First, has popped in. Yo, zup, people. Now that brings me to the end of tonight's show. Finished on time. Are we all going to watch the rest of Q&A now, or on a replay? There's also the Sky News beginning of the Sky News 2-part documentary hosted by Chris Kenny, Liberals in Power, where he interviews the main players from the Liberals' disastrous 9 years in government, including Christopher Pyne spilling the beans on everything that went down. So he likes to brag, and of course he wanted to be interviewed. So we've all got a lot to catch up on, but I'll be back for The Theorist tomorrow night with Andy Notch, which will only be on Rumble and Odyssey at 9 p.m. Melbourne time. So I will send the links in advance, of course, onto my social media channels. Let me know in the chat, because I know that some of you watch the Joel and Blair show, which is now only on Odyssey and Rumble. I tend to watch it on Rumble. Which do you prefer to watch live streams on, Rumble or Odyssey? I'll monitor both, but I just want to know. So this is the Odyssey link here. I will also get to the theorists URL as well. So make sure that you subscribe. Gabriel says Rumble. Lady of Shalott says Odyssey. Yes, Joel and Blair. First, the Joel and Blair channel got banned, and then Joel Davis's channel got banned because YouTube accused him of circumventing the Joel and Blair ban with his own YouTube channel, even though his own YouTube channel was there for longer. Though Rumble and Odyssey, they still do have their glitches, though they're much better than they used to be. Odyssey is in the blockchain, the library it is. So all the things that we upload to Odyssey will still be in the blockchain no matter what happens to Odyssey. So it seems most of you I'll be seeing on Odyssey tomorrow night. Now, of course, if you want to support the Unshackled and help pay for my own security expenses, because that's the justification that Avi Yemeni has used. So help me with my security costs or something else. So bronze $5 per month, silver $10 per month, or $25 per month, platinum $50 per month, and of course always accept super chats on Entropy as well. And you can also, I think they're called hyper chats on Odyssey. There was, I can't remember who it was, but somebody gave us a a hyper chat on Odyssey it was a hyper comment for our New Zealand election referendum coverage, which went directly to us like in a couple of days. It was really fast there. So Odyssey donations get really fast there. So thank you once again, everybody, for watching Tim's News Explosion. Who knows what will happen in the next week. I'll see you all tomorrow night. Now, the reason we're not on YouTube is because there was a strike, because Andy likes to talk about the jabby. And so we will definitely talk about the new COVID wave tomorrow and its associated ones. Since we're on Odyssey and Rumble, we can talk about it as much as we want. We can go even more out there than we normally have as well. Now, all of our previous Theorist episode, and of course all of the Tim's News Explosion Wilms fronts, are also backed up on Odyssey, Rumble as well. So good night, everybody. Stay safe and stay free, and also stay temperature controlled, because we are still having this temperamental weather. Global boiling hasn't arrived yet in Australia for the summer, but I wish it bloody well would. Good night, everybody. Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Tayeh.